Hi everyone, today is December 5th, 2020, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger. We have a big week this week. KC Cup finally wrapped up after all the drama that went down. We have ourselves a winner, so we're going to talk about the top 8 decks from the KC Cup. Fallout from the KC Cup was the new ban list, and this one hit hard. We're mired in a meta that was pretty repetitive for a while, I must say. And things are going to change. So we're going to go through all of the ban list changes upcoming for December 15th. Also, take a look at tier list update, what they expect at Duel Links meta, and with one of the tournaments already having had played with these new rules. After that, we'll go through DD Castle, 2 new rewards from that before we officially obtain Brody. And then finally, new structure deck EX featuring the Noble Knights. So my week in the Duel World was not very eventful. I already hit King of Games the week before. This week is pretty much just trying out new stuff. And, when the tier list was announced, the update and all that stuff, I tried out Witchcrafters again, because I saw some of the early King of Games decks were Witchcrafter decks, and they are expected to be competitive again, make Witchcrafters great again. And it was pretty cool, yeah. I think I got up to, I haven't played a ton, frankly. You hit King of Games, you start off at Plat 6, I'm at Plat 7, and then in between that, the Noble Knights box came out, and I bought 2 copies of that, owing to my free-to-play self, which isn't exactly free-to-play, but I didn't feel like spending like $6 on another third copy of whatever, Merlin or whatever, so I just bought 2 copies, one with gems, one with a little bit of money, and enjoying. Noble Knights are actually really hard to play. We'll get into it some other week, but right now it's proving a little difficult to play. But yeah, I got through what was needed for the DD Assault, waiting for the next round so I can acquire Brody. Let's get to this week in esports, and no bigger esports than the KC Cup 2020. Of course, this one was known for the allegations of cheating, and they cleared that up. So, without further ado, let's get to the top 8. First place, Grucius. Grucius used 4 decks, and I guess it's strange to see 4 decks. First place player might play with 2, but 4 decks, it really did help. I think he probably played through different stages. ELO is different depending where you are, so I guess there was a progression. So let's go through the 4 decks. First, Master of Rights 2, Cyber Angel Megalith, and this is the deck where Cyber Angel Ben 10 was proven to be the best over Dakini. You've got all the Megalith cards that you need because they function as the monsters, the materials, and the costs. So, 3 copies of Bether, 2 copies of Hagith, 3 copies of Ophiel, 3 copies of Phaleg, and 1 copy of Ak, 1 Megalith Portal Field Spell, 1 Megalith Emergence Trap, 3 Cyber Angel Ben 10, and 3 Senju. I've also got an extra deck, but I don't think it's too consequential for this deck. Gaga Cowboy, Maya Stroke, Diamond Dire Wolf, 2 of them, Gaga Samurai, Black Ship of Corn, and the Evagishki Marrowgeist. Other deck, Destiny Draw Invoked Lunalight. This is one of the storylines of the Kaiba Cup. Lunalights are good. They're not in a tier, but they're really good. And if you've played enough ranked, you know that Lunalights are good. But anyways, this is an interesting deck because none of the monsters are anything but dark. You've got all the Lunalights, 3 Yellow Martin, 2 Crimson Fox, 3 Emerald Bird, 3 White Rabbit. They're all dark. 2 Sphere Karibos, 3 Alistair, 1 Invocation, 3 Lunalight Fusion. So, yeah, you're basically just using Alistair to banish stuff from the opponent's graveyard, from other attributes, frankly. That's what it is. And then this deck, Master of Destiny Desperado. This is the deck that kind of led to the flavor of the week. I'm not expecting Desperado to stay as a tiered deck, but this week it kind of hit the tournament scene. And, having the first place guy, first place global, use the deck definitely helps. So this deck, 3 Desperado Barrel Dragon, 2 Machina Fortress, 2 Twin Barrel, 1 Temperance, 1 BM4 Blastbiter, 1 Cryule, 1 Misjudge, 2 Cup of Ace, 1 Fiend Comedian, 3 Karma Cuts, 3 Super Team Buddy Force Unite. And that's the trap card that pretty much put the deck together. Like, the deck wasn't much before this card came out. And this card does a lot for the deck. There's some machine synergy, so you could kind of like swap machines out. You could bait opponent back row destruction, and it thins out the deck. It does so many different things. Finally, Destiny draw Invoked Roids. Not much to say about Invoked Roids. They stall, they pierce, they direct attack. It's pretty much the alternative to burn. So congrats to Grucius for punching that ticket to 2021 WCS. Second place, Gift. Draw Sense Dark, Invoked Magician Girl, super standard deck. Not much to say about it. And Level Duplication Cristrons. This is a Crystron deck with no Sea Stealth, no Citadel Whale. Third place, Global Act, Cyber Style, Cyber Dragon. 2 versions of this deck. And it's a bit of a unique take. I'm not surprised this guy's Japanese because the deck's kind of unique. Only 5 core monsters. 1 Cyber Dragon, 1 Veer, 3 cores. I think many decks just run 2 Veers or whatever, but not much to say about it. 2 copies of Storm. I'm not sure if Storm's commonly used in Cyber Dragons, but I don't think it is. I think he's making use of some of the dead cards to get. Top 4th place global, Sunray Santee. This is a guy who has gone to Worlds before. Mythic Depths, Sea Stealth Attack, Cristrons. This is a pretty standard version of the deck. If you are running, well, it's 25 cards. It's a little different, I guess. No, it's 30. If you run Citadel Whale and Sea Stealth, Master of Rights 2, Cyber Angel, Megalith. Again, this is a version without Dakini, only Ben 10s, and it has a copy. It's pretty much the same deck, but it has a copy of Artifact Lancia as a tech. And Draw Sense Dark Invoked Magician Girls. Pretty much the deck that broke Invoked. 5th place global, Sun, previous champion. Restart Karakuri. That's as good as the deck gets. And 2 copies of Divine Wrath. That has some synergy with the 2 copies of Karakuri Gamma Oil. 3 copies of Ballista Squad as well. Offerings to Doom to throw back Karakuri card, and it shows up here as well. 6th place global, Hukasuki, Master of Fusion, Lunalight, pure Lunalight deck. This just proves how the deck was not on a tier list, but everyone knew it's good. And some stall options here. 3 Sphere Kribos, 2 Temperance, pretty much the same thing, both hand traps. Otherwise, pure Lunalight deck. Master of Fusion to help tutor your Lunalight Fusion. Yushan, 7th place. Level Augmentation Combo Shiranui. This is the top placing Shiranui deck amongst the millions that played. And as you know, the combo version kind of just goes around the Spirit Master, Sealing Ceremony of Catan, and Ghost Meets Girl. That's what makes it different. This deck also runs Needlebug Nest to help mill some stuff, and that's a limit 1 card. And finally, 8th place global, Soratun with Destiny, draw Ritual Beast. Ritual Beast didn't get touched in the ban list. This deck is interesting for having 2 copies of Appointer of the Red Lotus. That's a card that just shows up every so often in a Kaiba Cup, along with Destiny Draw to help trigger that skill. Alright. So let's get to the Meta Weekly. Duel Links Meta Weekly 153, and they're playing with the new rules by here. And you see the top decks. You got Blue Eyes, Desperado, Cyber Dragon, Noble Knights. It's a little different. First place, Terrific Master of Destiny Desperado. This is a similar deck to what first place Grucius played, and yeah, we're in a new world now with the tournament scene, and it all revolves around the Super Team Buddy Force Unite. But some differences, of course, head judging, 2 copies of BM4 Blast Spider, no Cryule, stuff like that. Second place, Grucius, he's back. After winning the KC Cup, he's back and placing second in a tournament. Master of Destiny Desperado, he kind of made a change up here. A little bit of a different deck here. As we saw with the previous, they do run some XZ's options with what monsters they have, typically level 4s. Grucius threw in a curveball here, threw in some Black Salvo that lets you do some synchro. So there's some synchro and XZ's plays here. He does like Cryule, so that's back. 1 copy of Machine Gear Frame, kind of help with the Fortress, I guess. Needlebug Nest is still in the deck. Black Salvo lets you do a level 7 synchro play, so you go with Black Rose and Samurai Destroyer for some tech. It's kind of a toolbox. And Star Eater level 11, which goes well with the Machine of Fortress. Oh yeah, Barrel Dragon too, 3 plus 8. And a bunch of level 4 XC's plays. Top 4 Zenith. Peak Performance Black Wings. This is kind of like the remaining vestige of the old meta. And it's pretty much the same Blackwing deck. 3 Simoon, 1 Bora, 2 Zephyros, 3 Gale, 2 Chris, 1 Orochia Squall, 3 Black Whirlwinds, 3 Cosmic, 2 Offerings to the Doomed. And top 4 Dark Ragnos Spell Specialist, Lightsworn Thunder Dragons. This is an interesting deck in that it runs a few unorthodox cards. Card of the Soul that help you tutor the Dragon Thunderhawk when you have 4,000 life points, and Dark World Dealings, to name a few of these odd cards in the deck. So this is the predictive update for the tier list. They said they tested it out a ton, and I don't doubt that they didn't, but it's hard to say what the deck's going to look like without any card updates. We don't know what's going to come in the next box. Noble Knights are not included here either. So this is just kind of like based on the reaction of what got nerfed. Tier 1, we have Cyber Dragons and Witchcrafters. 2 kind of like opposite decks. Cyber Dragons, pure aggro deck with the 1 control on Cybernetic Overflow, which is pretty much the best card. And then Witchcrafters, controlling monster effects, becoming really big, that kind of thing. So those decks are back. Tier 2, we also have some promotion of some existing decks. Black Wings, Blue Eyes, and Ritual Beasts. And Tier 3, Gookie and Thunder Dragon. So there's a whole shakeup. All of these cards were not tiered before, or were like Tier 3, Tier 4 decks. They're all back in the scene. And all the cards that were in the tier list got removed. Crystron's, Combo Shiranui, Control Shiranui, Invoked Magician Girls, Karakuri. Why were these cards removed from the list? Well, let's jump into the ban list. See what's up. Alright, so the ban list, this is set for December 15th. So it's pretty annoying when you see people still trying to play these decks, but I can't really fault people for actually liking to play the decks that got banned. I myself was a Karakuri player who hit King of Games with Karakuris, so my deck got banned. So I can't see people liking Shiranui or Dark Magician or things like that. But anyhow, this is an interesting set of nerfs because it's just a ban list, no skill updates. Typically, we see both of them in conjunction. And what that makes me think is that there was enough diversity of skills in the metagame during the KC Cup, during the last few months, and that's good. We saw that with Shiranui. They didn't just run one skill. Karakuris ran multiple skills. Invoked kind of got towards Draw Sense Dark once they got aligned with the Magician Girls. The Crystron's played different decks. Not sure what else, but overall there was enough skill diversity, I think, so that they were comfortable just hitting the cards. Let's get to the cards. a card was banned, and this is Invoked Coxodus. Coxodus always got less credit than Purgatrio. Purgatrio is the one who scared you, who pierced all of your monsters, hit for a lot of damage. Coxodus was always around, just as useful. It already got sent to Limited 1, and it was a card that wasn't in every deck because it was Limited 1, so people didn't really run it if they couldn't afford to, but definitely saved the deck, stalled the deck against various removals, any removal really outside of Fortunately Every or anything like that. And it just gave the deck some ability to grind out games. And now they don't have that anymore. So, and there's also that really old combo with Concentrating Current, because it takes advantage of the huge defense that Coxodus has. But what this does is takes out the water element in Invoked. So Invoked decks are pretty much just running Earth and Fire right now. We don't have a Wind attribute for it yet. Earth, Fire, and Dark, but the Dark doesn't really count. You're not really going to play Invoked for the Dark one. Earth as well. Earth, that you're just getting a 3000 attack beater. So what I see is some kind of package with Fire decks. And with the other nerf, it could be a pretty lean package, but it's not going to be the reason you... It changes Invoked from a deck you build for to an option. Invoked, ever since it came into Duel Links, has always been an archetype. And different archetypes filled in to provide attributes for Invoked. Now I think it's going to get reversed with all these changes. And it's going to be some kind of package for a Fire deck somehow. That's minimal commitment. I think that's what it is. The minimal commitment. And you can actually build your deck your own way. But Coxodus is gone. And yeah, it's gone. More effect damage. Or effect removal, I mean. Now we have a card that's moved into Limited 1. And that's Karakuri Merchant Model 177 on Inashichi. In this whole run of this podcast, I've been calling it Inasachi. It's Inashichi. And this is the deck's core monster. This kills the deck right here. And it's a hit on a few things. It's hit on consistency. Karakuri decks ran Restart. They ran Draw Sense Low Level for the purpose of having Merchant in the opening hand. That was the goal. Because it worked so well with Kunamzan that you needed some opening hand consistency. You needed the Merchant. So now you're kind of begging. Let's say you're playing Karakuri post-nerf. You're going to be begging for a hand with Ninishi and Cache, because that's the only thing you could do. Ninishi is a limited 2, and you're definitely going to run 2 of her to max out the chance of Cache, which you'll be running 3 of. And then you also have 1 Merchant in your deck. So it's kind of like 6 cards in the deck that you need 2 of. That's not great. And this also hurts Kunamzan, the counterpart, because Kunamzan and Ninishi isn't great. It doesn't always gel because they're both tuners, right? So this hurts the whole level 7 synchro play into Burai, into the play. So it just kills the whole thing. Now, the fact that you lose 2 Inasachi in itself is a -2. Each Inasachi tutors a card, right? So, in that you lose, you pretty much lose 2 cards advantage right there. And Merchant tutored out anything. So any of the spells that worked with Karakuri, you could draw your cash in, you could draw your cash shed, you could draw your gamma oil. All those get hurt because the consistency's gone. Now, there isn't much in the game that replaced Inashichi. The Karakuri Barrel, Model 96 Shinkuro, is a level 2. But then the level 2 kind of doesn't work with the Kunamzen because that's going to be 2 tuners on the board and they can't make the Burai. It might have to work with the Nanashik, which is the level 5 normal, so you kind of have to use the level 2 tuner and the level 5 normal. It's a bit clunky, and this really is a big hit on Karakuri. Alright, Limited 2, which is pretty much the death knell for decks. What is on Limited 2? So we got Magician of Dark Illusion. This is the first hit on Dark Magician. Well, there has been a previous hit, I think, but first hit right now. And this one is to limit good generic limited 2 cards with Dark Magician. A handicap, if you will. And with Dark Magician, it's probably Enemy Controller, maybe World Legacy Clash. Those are the 2 cards I see that they're trying to affect. So, I don't know, Magician with Dark Illusion, you could just live with 1, frankly. Most decks do live with 1. So, not too big of a nerf, but they're trying to limit the number of cards, like econs you could use with Dark Magician. Alright, so the next 3 cards are pretty much lumped into the same category, and that's the Assassination of Shiranui, which I personally am happy for, but I can't speak for a Shiranui player who, there's like a million Shiranui players, and they're all hurt by this, so, you know, one person's misfortune is another person's favor, but you can't laugh at the misfortune of others too much, but 3 nerfs here, and it kind of goes along with the next deck that get hit, but what happens here is they put 3 cards on Limit 2, in which Shiranui's Squire is already Limit 2. So do the math, there's 4 cards for 2 slots. Alright, Shiranui's Solitaire. This card was never for anything, like 500 attack, 0 defense, but it's set up all the plays. Tribute a monster, basically send something to the graveyard. Special summon a tuner from the deck. So that's your level 2 play, pretty much. Then this guy and the 2 become a 6. And then this card, you can recycle a banished monster. And then you bring it back. And you turn it into a level 8. It set up all the plays. It cheated out monsters from the deck. It made reuse of banished cards. It's just, Shiranui was pretty much a textbook masterclass on how to use the graveyard, how to use the banished zone, how to match up levels for synchro summons, how to do that. They were the perfect deck for that. Now, next one, Shiranui Sun Saga, which was also added to Limit 2, was pretty much the reason you played Shiranui. It's the boss monster of the deck. 3,500 attack. Return synchro summoned synchro monsters into your extra deck. Destroy stuff on the board. Protect the board, and banish stuff while doing it. Triggering effects. This was the nexus of Shiranui. So, you lose the purpose that you're playing Shiranui for. Now, naturally, you would include one of these cards. You would have to run Sun Saga. There's no reason. You play 1, right? Because that's the whole reason you're playing Shiranui. But then you're going to have to pick between Squire or Solitaire. That's the kicker here. So yeah, Sun Saga, boss monster, a lot of attack, controlled the board, triggered effects. Yeah, did everything. Finally, Spirit Master. Spirit Master is more of a hit on the combo Shiranui deck because they kind of rely on the combo of banishing this guy, hitting something on the board. But, some regular Shiranui decks ran it. It was pretty much run from the start before Shiranui diverged. It was pretty much run from the start as a quick synchro summon tool. So it's a pretty good card too. Doesn't get as much love as others, but it's a combo card, so that's what it is. So all these 3 nerfs will kill Shiranui. Now, Crystron's got hit good too. And 3 cards on a semi-limit. Crystron Ryan is already semi-limited, so we put 3 more on. Crystron Citri, first 3 hits, and this is another tuner. So they're kind of hitting at the consistency of the tuners on these nerfs. And ideally, this is probably the card you would run 2 of and take up all the semi-limit slots, because this is kind of the reason you play Crystrons, is to surprise them, quick effect. Synchro Summon, you get into your Amatrix to flip them. You can get into your Quadrant Gandrix to banish stuff. Pretty much the reason why you play Crystrons. So I would go with the Citri. You cut out your Ryons, I guess, but then you lose some other stuff. Scrap Recycler. This is not necessarily a Crystron card, but it became one. And it's a free card, so it's easy to nerf. Once normal special summon, send a machine from the deck to the graveyard. So pretty much the easy disposal here. And that's pretty much what Crystrons need to get started. They need a disposal. Some dual skills, they start off with some kind of disposal. Yeah, that's how they get started. So they're going to need to use some inferior dual skill or some other card to start disposing of stuff, but it hits at the consistency of disposing stuff into the graveyard. Now, Genix Controller got hit too. And, this card's just a basic tuner. No abilities. Normal monster, nothing. And this hits at 2 cards, really. This hits also at Genix Undyne, because Genix Undyne's only ability, really, is to dump something to tutor Genix Controller. So basically, you're hitting at multiple cards here in this nerf to Crystrons. Crystrons weren't seen a ton. Like, they were always like a big brain deck, I feel like, and you never saw them a ton, but they were always very good. Now this drops them quite a bit. Now, the last one on the semi-limit list is Dragoonity Senidus, and there's basically a swap going on here, but basically, the Divine Lance got swapped out, and we got Senidus. Senidus, you discard a Dragoonity equip from the deck to the card. So pretty much this is a setup play for Cows. Cows is the card that if you banish it with Chain Disappearance, they lose. They have no way of winning the game. So Senidus kind of sets up the play, and it's not a huge nerf to Dragoonity, but it is. Because kind of like the difference between putting an equip spell versus a monster that's core to the deck, it's a big difference. They still can't use their semi-limited cards like Hey Trunade, but it's kind of hitting at a starter of the combo, if you will. So it hits at the starter of a combo, it's a big nerf. I guess Dragoon, got too many brainless wins. That's what happened. Okay, limit 3. Invocation. What this does is it puts Invocation and Alistair, who's already limit 3, in the same slot. So you got 3 slots for 2 cards. You can't really max out your consistency and also ability to power up stuff in the hand. You pretty much won't really use that ability unless you get lethal, I think, because you're going to be wasting too many resources in that point. But it hits at the consistency of Invoked. In a way, this makes the deck, this goes into the point I was saying when I mentioned Coxidus. You got 3 cards in a package, plus whatever fire monster or earth monster you're running, probably fire monster. That's a minimal investment right there. So this makes the package actually a package, not really an archetype that you build around. So what it is there's some invoked Purgatrio fire package down the line that doesn't take too many deck slots. Alright, Fusion Reserve also got put on limit 3. It kind of hits the invoked thing. It was a tutor for Alistair. It was a tutor for any of the attribute monsters. It also hits at Neos Fusion if you decide to run that with the deck. So just an easy tutor for any of those cards. It's a card from the selection box, Volume 3, so it's not cheap. Alright, Magician's Navigation and Magician's Rod, both limited 3. This is what kills, I put in quotes, kills Dark Magician. Now, Magician Navigation is pretty much the reason you play Dark Magician, because it works so well with the Dark Magic Circle, with the big monsters, the Dark Magicians you put into the deck. It works so well with banishing a spell or trap the next turn. Pretty much the reason, this is pretty much the only reason you play Dark Magician. And, yeah. Now it's sharing the slot with Magician's Rod, who is equally good. Your ability to start off a play to draw Dark Magic Circle, or Magician's Navigation, or Illusion Magic. This was the main worker of the deck, and to hit at the consistency so hard with just 2 slots, 3 slots, for 2 cards, that's half the consistency right there. So, Dark Magician weren't ever a tiered. They were tiered, but they're not really tiered. They're just like a working man's deck. And they were, frankly, the deck that you saw the most, and the deck that I really hated. And I just hated it because I saw it a ton. But frankly, you could beat it a lot. You knew the counters to Dark Magician, and now it's gone, so it is what it is. And, some people are actually hurt by this. They like playing Dark Magician, so I can't revel too much in it, but I for one am happy that we could see more diversity in the ranked meta. Finally, Assault Armor. I don't know what happened with this Assault Armor. Might be for Silent Swordsman, I don't know. It's for Warriors. I never really saw it. I don't think I ever saw it. And sometimes these nerfs happen, you kind of scratch your head. Something broken was discovered, and that's what happened. Alright, so 3 cards got moved to the Unlimited, and Dragoon Divine Lance, as I mentioned, swapped out with the Senatus. I don't think this really changes anything. Hero Shadow Scout. This was kind of like a staple in some burn decks, so you're kind of getting some spell cards and stuff like that to burn your opponent down. Burn's been nerfed quite a bit, so I guess they think it's okay to use this card again. And Donpa Marksman for Hire. For Hire's never made a splash. They had some new cards recently with Bravo and some other cards, but Donpa is no longer limited 2, so you can use World Legacy Clash safely, but their Dyna's still limited 1, so it's probably good enough, like a tier 4 deck. You probably hit King Games with For Hires by now, but these really good old decks, they don't have the power that a lot of these new decks do have right nowadays. So that is all I have to say about the nerfs. Overall, I'm really happy that Konami did it. Free-to-play players complain all the time about their stuff getting nerfed. I get it. You can't really turn these cards into a thing, but the meta was super stale, and I was questioning whether I should keep playing. There's just different things push top-level players away. I'm not a top-level player, but pushes people who've played the game a long time away. And there's nothing like a stale meta that does that. So, kudos for actually taking action. And hopefully it leads to some changes without, being a huge departure. It gives an opening for XCs to come in, but we'll see. I trust their balanced team do all that stuff. Alright, let's move on. DD Assault. DD Assault's that event. It's kind of like a reincarnation of an old event, the DD Tower, which I always was always like one of my favorite events, but it's pretty much the same thing here. You go up some floors, you fight like it's got a gauntlet match, I don't know what you call it, but you fight multiple monsters with the same amount of life points. It's like a gauntlet, yeah. So, notably, this DD Assault event is the one that gives Axel Brody. So there's a whole bunch of fire-themed pyro cards, whatever you call these guys. Axel Brody is currently unavailable. Right now, December 6th is the first day we get Axel Brody, so when I'm recording this, we don't have Axel Brody. So I'm not going to talk about what cards or skills he has yet, but I will talk about the 2 rewards. Now, the notable thing about the story here is that the last DD Castle, it was the Vampire Hunter. Now we have Dark Blade. Dark Blade was a card that I always found very interesting for being just like a vanilla 1800 monster. It's a Dark Warrior. Yeah, there's something about Dark Blade that's really cool. But it's also the storyteller here, so Dark Blade, Tour Guide, Axel, something's going down. So 2 new cards from these rewards here, outside of what we're getting from Axel Brody. First one is called the Blazing Bars, level 8 Pyro, 2600, 2200. While this card's in your hand or graveyard, you can banish 3 other monsters from your graveyard, special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon other monsters for the rest of the turn. During your main phase, you can send other monsters you control to the graveyard and inflict 250 damage to your opponent for each monster sent to the graveyard. You can use each effect once per turn. So while combo Shiranui just got nerfed, this has a bit of synergy of Shiranui's Spirit Master, so it's something to think about. But this goes along with the Pyro theme of dumping stuff into the graveyard so you can kind of cheat this guy out. Reminds me of a smaller scale of the Elemental Lord cards, but you could also pretty much send stuff that's on the board to the graveyard, inflict 250 for each. You can inflict 500 max. Can't send this card itself to the graveyard for 750 lethal, but you could send those 2 other guys to the graveyard. Helps populate the graveyard for other effects, like lavels or whatever. Yeah. It's actually a decent card if you're able to populate your graveyard. So if there's some kind of like disposal fire deck that comes out, this is definitely in consideration. I would say it's definitely not a meta thing, but if it is, that would be pretty cool. But pretty cool and annoying, I must say. But what it is a burn. It's a burn card, pyro card, a laval card possibly. You could throw in Shiranui Solitaire, a Spirit Master in there maybe. I don't know. Now, next card is Laval Magna Cannoneer, level 4 Pyro, 1700, 200. Up to twice per turn, you can send a fire monster from your hand to the graveyard and inflict 250 damage to your opponent. This burn damage, of course, after it got nerfed, is very negligible. 500 damage per turn is respectable, but if you're just sending one card away, 250, that's whatever. Now, the whole goal of this card is to send cards into the graveyard, which is the core of the Laval archetype. So pretty much they just thrive on putting stuff into the graveyard, using that, banishing them, and Laval Dust Flame. They could do different things. This is a setup card for that. Definitely in consideration. I don't think it brings Lavals back. It doesn't put Lavals back on the map in any way, but it is a card that helps the archetype, helps the whole theme. I'm all about it. So that is all for the DD Castle. Let's get into the structure deck Tales of the Noble Knights. Now this structure deck EX received rave reviews, and why that is because it included a lot of cards from the past. So there's 4 new cards from this deck, but you also have a copy of Noble Knight Madrot, which is from Crusaders Battlegrounds. You have Noble Knight Dristan, which is from Crusaders Battlegrounds. Gawaine's kind of useless, but you got Noble Knight Boars from the same box. Peridor, not really useful. Artorigus, not really useful. This is kind of the king. Kind of interesting. It's a storyline. They made the normal monster the boss. Gavalchavad, not very useful. But then each of the equipped spells. Gallatin, you need. Arfadutor, you need. Caliburn, you need. Noble Arms of Destiny, you need. Glory to the Noble Knights, you need. So pretty much this puts away the need to buy Crusaders Battlegrounds. Noble Knights was a deck that I always did play, so I always had the card. So it sucked for me buying this for 4 new cards, but it was necessary. Very good for a new player. Very good investment. It's probably, people are hinting games with it already, but I'm not sure if it hits the tournament scene as well. But right now, it's a very good investment for free-to-play players trying to compete. So we got 4 new cards from this deck. Let's go over them. Merlin. Level 3, Dark Spellcaster, 1400, 500. There's a lot of effects on this card. You can only use each effect of Merlin once per turn. You can tribute this card, special summon one Noble Knight monster from your deck. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect except for Noble Knights. There's 2 quick effects you could do. You can banish this card from the graveyard immediately after this effect resolves. Synchro summon one Noble Knight synchro monster using monsters you control. Or you can quick effect use this monsters. You can banish this card from the graveyard immediately after this effect resolves. XZ summon one Noble Knight monster using XZ's monsters you control. Using materials you control. That's read wrong. Now, if you can't tell, this card's kind of busted. You tribute it. You cheat out Madrot or Boars. Typically, Madrot to set up the 2 monster play. Boars to help set up more more equipped spells into the graveyard play. There's different reasons for why. And then when it's in the graveyard, you can quick effect Synchro Summon or XZ Summon Noble Knight monster. Now, just because all we have in the Synchro tool is Ignoble Knight of High Lord Salin, which is a card that's not worth playing at all, we're going to do XZ Summon. So it kind of limits the use of Merlin. Merlin's always going to be used as an XZ play, unless that Ignoble Knight's actually good. I don't think it is. We're going to go with some XZ plays. So it does a few things. It saves your monsters from destruction. You can kind of turn them into the XZ monsters. You could be bigger than them. The XZ monster is going to equip a bunch of equip spells. So you're going to be bigger than them. They might run into a monster and lose. That's pretty much the purpose of Merlin. Quick effect. Set up a quick XZ summon. Pretty much the fastest XZ summon you could do. So I would say Madrot's probably the optimal play if you were looking for that type of thing. But yeah, a quick way to get your XZ monsters. Now the problem with this card, there is a weakness though. You could get disrupted. Paleozoic Canadia Floodgate. They can interrupt this card when you normal summon it. So you have to trigger that effect off. It's not automatic, which hurts a little bit against the meta, unfortunately. But it is what it is. Otherwise, a busted card. Now, there's a new trap card called Until Noble Arms Are Needed Once Again. Trap card. Excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of Noble Arms equipped spells you control. If you do, add one of them to your hand. Also place the remaining cards on the top of your deck in any order. You can banish this card from your graveyard except the turn this was sent to the graveyard. Special summon from your deck one Noble Knight monster of a different name from the cards you control or in your graveyard. You can use each effect once per turn. Whole mouthful there. This does a few things. There's some synergy of your XZ monsters. You put Noble Arms equipped spells into the graveyard or into your hand, kind of like a scry card. This is like a scry trap card. And you kind of build a toolbox based on your Noble Knight equipped spells. So you go with one Gallatin, one Arthur Duder, one Caliber, and 2 Noble Arms of Destiny because that's the best one. And you probably run a Gwen High Fiver. And, you know, she doesn't count, but she is an equipped spell. And this trap card kind of thins out the other ones so you can kind of get to the ones you want and whatever. So this card also, you can special summon a Noble Knight monster of a different name that's not in the graveyard. So you could kind of just like thin out the deck, help set up another XYZ play or something. A lot of utility in this trap card. A lot of decks running 2 of them. Now there's 2 XYZ monsters that gives new depth to Noble Knights. And these 2 cards are both exclusive Noble Knight. They require Noble Knight XYZ material, so you can't just run these cards. Not that you want to. So Artorigus, King of Noble Knights, rank 4, requires 2 level 4 monsters, Noble Knight monsters, 2,000, 2,000. When this card's XYZ summoned, you can target up to 3 Noble Arms equipped spell cards with different names in your graveyard. Equip those targets to this card. Once per turn, you can detach 1 XYZ material from the card, destroy any number of spells or traps on the field, up to the number of Noble Arms equipped spells. So, it's not very flashy in terms of attack, but you are equipping different spells. Gallatin's going to give it 1,000, Caliburn's going to give it 500, Gwen High Fiver isn't going to count. But Noble Arms of Destiny, Protection, Arthur for back row. This card doesn't need Arthur because you're already destroying back row. That's the point of this card. You're controlling the back row here. Ultimately, Noble Knights are an extreme control deck, and this is one of the reasons why. So, yeah, works well. Now, the other one's a similar card, but a little different. Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus. Rank 5, requires 2 level 5 Noble Knight monsters, 2200, 2200. When XE summon, you can target 3 mobile Noble Arms, equip spells with different names in your graveyard, equip those cards targets to this card. Once per turn, detach an XD's material, target one other monster on the field, destroy it. If this card sent from the field to the graveyard, target 1 level 4 or higher Noble Knight monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So it's pretty much the same thing, but you're controlling monsters on the board. And detaching the XD's material, destroy one other monster. It could be your own monster, and it's face up or face down, doesn't matter. But it targets. So the Archfiend's Call is immune to this card, for example. The attack gain is nominal. I mean, it's like it's not much, and yeah, different purposes. This one's to destroy monsters, more of an aggressive card. The Artorigus himself is for destroying the back row. And because it's level 5, it doesn't mean you have to run level 5 monsters. The different Noble Knights, when equipped with different things, are level 5. So Boar's is level 5, Parador's level 5, Madrot's level 5. So they become level 5 monsters, and you can make your Xyz play into level 5. So you don't have to run Ignoble Knight of Blood Salin or whatever. So, yeah. So, people are already hitting King of Games with this deck. You could look up the best deck. Some decks run Storm, that's the one I'm playing. Other decks are just pure decks with some back row, there's different ways to build the deck, but the deck is proving to be good enough for King of Games. Past that, I'm not sure. But that is where we are at with Noble Knights. I'm very happy about it because I played Noble Knights for quite a bit of time, actually. I'm not sure if I ever hit King of Games with them, but this gives the deck new life, and I'm very, I'm pleased about it. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about today are the ranked duel rewards for this month of December. 2 new cards, SR and R. First one is Knight Papilloperative. Rank 4 XZ Dark Warrior, 2600, 2000, requires 3 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 XZ's material from this card. This card gains 300 attack for each XZ's material attached to a monster on the field. So in the end, you're just going to get a beat stick here. And this guy requires 3 monsters to make. So if you detach 1, it'll be 600 attack. That will make it 3200, which hits over the Holy Grail of 3000. I'm not sure how much that applies anymore. But if they expect Blue Eyes to be meta again, I guess it does apply. Yeah, not too impressive overall. Right now, in the early XC's meta, we're seeing more monsters that require 2. Like, we don't see Stellar Knight Delteros being played in extra decks. We see a lot of Diamond Dire Wolves because that just requires 2 level 4 monsters. And the Papilloperative, really, it's just a beat stick. So it's kind of like running Gem Knight Pearl, but Gem Knight Pearl only costs 2, and this one costs a bit more. Or this is clearly an upgrade over Gagagigo the Risen, though, because Gagagigo the Risen maxes out at 2950. Papilloperative will become 32 situationally. It also depends on the opponent's board. So we're not seeing a ton of XC's plays in the meta, so this obviously gets stronger when the opponent has an XC's play. So, overall not too exciting. Maybe when more people start running XC's against you, it's something to consider. But right now, if you do have that slot in your extra deck, and you do spawn monsters, some level 4s pretty fast, this is something to consider. But not too impressive if you're building a whole menu of XC's monsters in your extra deck. This doesn't really stand out. Now, the R card is Memory Crush King, a card that you see in artworks a lot. It's a Dark Fiend, 5 stars, 2000, 0 defense. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by direct attack, remove from play all synchro monsters in your opponent's graveyard, and inflict 1000 damage to your opponent for each monster removed. So in Duel Links, it's 500 damage, so burn damage has been nerfed. Now, what I'm wondering is, where was this card the whole time when we had to suffer through Shiranui for the last year? Because Shiranui are the main deck that use that power play of sending back the synchro monsters in the graveyard and blowing your board with Sun Saga. That's pretty much their play. It also has effect against Black Wings with the Obsidian Hawk Joe, for example. So there are various decks that this is effective against. But overall, it's an underwhelming card. It's a 5-star monster, 2000 attack. There doesn't seem to be a way to cheat this out, though. That's what sucks. Different cards, they cheat out the weaker 1500 attack dark monsters like the Mystic Tomato or anything like that. But I can't seem to find a way to cheat this out. Now, this could be okay in a deck where you use, like Plague Spreader, Glow Up Bulb, things that come out of the graveyard to allow you to ramp into a normal summon. Kind of like the Chaos Shaman, or I forget what's that guy, Chaos Sorcerer, I think it's called. I forget. But anyways, this card hits your opponent for 2000, situational burn. And of course, that's situational, is very situational. It has to be a late game. Your opponent has to have a bunch of synchro monsters in their graveyard. They have to have a clear board. A lot of variables going into the way. It's hard to direct attack your opponent when they have stuff on the board and you're only 2000 attacks. So, yeah, very situational card. It would be a good tech card. There's an easier way to get it out. But of course, there are some decks it does do well against, I think. Mayakashi, that would just pretty much blow them up. They'll lose all their monsters. And there's also the various, what goes into the graveyard decks with the rank 3 XCs. It's called Chain Beat for a bit. But that card has like those Goyo monsters in the graveyard as well. They'll take 2 of them to make, and then the Coral Dragon. There's a few different things. But, yeah, this is way too situational. It could be a tech card, but Shiranui are on their way out. So this card's play overall has just been hampered by not being around at the right time. Alright, so we're not going to have a deck deep dive this week. Upcoming news, Leo and Luna's Duel Carnival, new UR Skull Flame, and new SR Burning Skull Head. Mid-December Tour Guide Bingo, a new SR Xyz Monster Baby Tyragon. Mid-December, Kite Tenjo, new UR number 10 Illuminite, and SR Photon Crusher. Late December, Duels Chronicles 5D's Attack of the Dark Signers, UR Majestic Red Dragon, and new skill for Jack and Yusei. Late December, Duel Links Mission Research with Curse of Darkness. And of course, next week, in a few days, we'll have Axel Brody. Tomorrow, we'll have Axel Brody. So, going over his all his cards and his skills. There has been rumblings that he's giving us Volcanic Scattershot, which is apparently a very good card. So I'm excited to see what that's all about. All right, so that's it for the podcast this week. Search this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. Search the Duel Assessment Podcast. Check out the podcast and more at the website at theduelassessment.wordpress.com. Email me with anything at theduelassessment@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter at duel_assessment. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.